Homeschool Queen Bee. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, no, no. I'm really happy to. For those who aren't aware, we connected in Mark Lobliner's private DM group, and I'm very interested in what you got going on here. So I wanted to give you a chance to talk about who you are and what you do.
Okay. I'm a homeschooling mom. I was homeschooled off and on a lot. And then I've been homeschooling my kids for the last decade and a half. So I've got 4 kids, and yeah, that's about it. That's kind of my Twitter thing. I'm super into homeschooling. I enjoy it. I love my kids. I love my family. That's just what I do. So I'm also I also have a actual job where I make money. I'm a nurse, um, but I don't really care about that much. So that just makes the money.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So why are you so passionate about homeschooling? Like, what is it about this that's captured you this way?
It's so homeschooling is so like multifaceted. Um, I like my favorite part of it is my family and just like really delving into the relationships with my kids, and we've just gotten really close. That's my favorite part of it, and I feel like the state has really taken that away from families, and it makes me really sad. And like the longer I homeschool, the more I see how disconnected society is and how that could be solved in just having those family connections and those grassroots connections. So that's really my favorite part of it. But then it's so multifaceted. There's so many things I love about homeschooling. So
Got it. So what do you think is the major problem? You called out the state, educating everyone's children. Like, what do you think are the main issues with that?
um where do I start? So starting in preschool now, I mean, when I was a kid, it was kindergarten, but starting in preschool now, you're outsourcing your parenting to some complete rando, some hourly worker, in daycare, and then on to a teacher who you've never met before. You're just like, oh, here, take care of my precious child that means the world to me. And I see a problem with, I mean, just the entire idea of sending your kids away to school, even if it's to a school where you absolutely know that everybody loves your children, which there's no way to know that. But if you even just the idea of outsourcing your parenting, outsourcing to people you don't know, of and they're taking control of the most precious thing in your life, and that just boggles my mind. And then, of course, they use it for nefarious things. Individuals use it for nefarious things, like weirdos that want to abuse children. But then also the education system itself. So if you're the public education system, obviously is in shambles, and they're teaching kids things that I certainly don't want my kids learning. But even if you sent them to a regular private school, is everything that they're teaching on board with what I want my kids to learn? Very likely not. So, I mean, just the entire idea of sending your kids away just from I just don't, I hate it.
Yeah, I agree, and I've been a weirdo, compared to the rest of society because I share the same view. My wife stayed home with our kids, and when we got together, that was our deal. It's like, look, like somebody's got to stay home with the kids. Doesn't matter who it is. I chose to make the money. My wife stayed home with the kids, and the thought that, like you said, like a kinder care worker making $12 an hour is going to care for your child in anything approximating a way that you would is insanity to me. And I always like to think of it as like the analogy I would use is let's say my wife and I are going to go out on our anniversary. It's our 10th anniversary or something. And we got a huge night planned. And then I call in and say, like, look, something came up at work. I can't come, but I've hired this guy, Bob, and he's going to step in my stead and he's going to take you out to dinner. And it's insanity. It's
Right.
completely insane. Like, that relationship dynamic is not the same thing. You cannot, for $12 an hour, provide something that approximates anything resembling a parent-child relationship or even a familial relationship. Not even like leaving with a grandparent or something like that. It's not the same thing. And these people are got like how many kids they got? 20 kids or something that they're all watching. It's a recipe for disaster, I think.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
So what are your thoughts on the state generally? I saw you you said something about it, and I wanted to poke a little bit at that. Do you have any objections, generally to the state, or is this like I just this is not an area I want them, being a part of my family's life through?
I have all the objections to the state. I don't trust anybody in government to have my best interest in mind. So, I mean, that's my starting point with the government in general. Um, so yeah, I have a lot of problems with the state.
So are you an anarchist?
I've I decline to use that word, but
Voluntarist? Any
voluntarist, we'll go with that. Voluntarist, yeah.
Cool. Are you avoiding that term because it's so polluted? Like it's
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm the same way. I am also an anarchist. You might have seen
Yeah.
from our, my logo for the podcast. But I tend to avoid it because it brings up images of, black clad people that are,
Right.
Antifa type that are throwing Molotov cocktails and burning shit to the ground. And that's not my
That's not
understanding
me.
of it's I'm a peaceful anarchist. I'm
Yeah.
a philosophical anarchist, which is no initiation of force. Like that is that's kind of where I start and end. So interesting. I don't meet many of us out there. It's pretty rare. I've had a couple on the show. But that's super interesting because I look at the state as basically an indoctrination camp or the state school.
Absolutely.
You walk in the front door, like you said, from preschool, pre-K, kindergarten. Like, what are the first thing they do? Like, start the day chanting, these magic words to a flag, and how you're gonna, pledge this loyalty oath, and your kid doesn't know anything.
Right.
And that's just the start of the day. And then I think the education curriculum is geared to sort of engineer an outcome, and it's homogeneity, right? We have this Department of Education now, where no matter where you go in all 50 states, you have a required curriculum and required learnings, and you sort of spit out people that think and view government in the same way. And I think that's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know how education started back in Prussia? Not
Mhm.
education in general, but
The Prussian system.
yeah, the Prussian system, exactly. It was made to make good soldiers for the Prussian army. And yeah, that's not what I have in mind for my children. And the United States just copied that to make good factory workers. And that's also not what I have in mind for my children. I'm hoping that they do a lot better than, soldiers and factory workers. Not that those are awful, but I don't want to send them into the wood chopper, to be hewn just like every other piece of wood. So,
Yeah, for sure. It's like Pink Floyd thing. It's the wall.
yeah, exactly.
It's a real thing, and I think we see this today. We have this entire nation of essentially NPCs, and
Right.
it's very. You probably see me on Twitter ranting. I get really frustrated that folks are just not seemingly capable of critical thought, and that's something that they definitely don't teach in public schools. Probably it's the opposite of that.
Yeah, I think they try to get rid of critical thinking, actually.
Yeah, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down in our
Right.
system, right? Like you look at any child who might. I was one of them, so I know very very well. I was in the gifted program, but I was failing because I was not built for that system. I had ADHD, and I had a hugely creative imagination, and I wanted to be up and out and doing things. And like, no, you sit down, you be quiet. You have to fit this certain mold, otherwise you get smacked down, and you are failing, and you are like you get it's a real difficult thing for people that aren't like easily moldable, right? Like it breaks kids. It's not a good system.
So I have a story. My brother, he went to so we were living in Texas when I was young, and Texas was going through a lot of homeschool litigation at the time. And so my mom put us in public school for a little bit. And while all that was going on, and my brother was in first grade, and he was the exact same way as you. He was up and going and 100 miles an hour, and got in a lot of trouble, and they labeled him. And my mom said, "Yeah, forget this." So she pulled him out, and right after first grade. And I think that's when Leaper versus the state of Texas was won. I think it was right around that time. So she was okay to pull him out at that point. So she did, and basically unschooled him. He pulled apart computers and put them back together and just did whatever his little heart desired. She made him do some math, but he wasn't really up to par in math by the time he was in, I think, 8th grade. So I wrote this down on it's like in my pinned tweets. But he decided he wanted to go to a public high school because his friends were going. And my mom said, "Well, you have to get up to par and what they expect from you." So he felt he was behind in math. So he got ahead in math. Um, did basically all of his elementary and middle school math in his 8th grade year. And then in his 9th grade year, went into, I don't remember all the things he went into, but basically he went in and out of public school. His freshman year, he went to public school. Sophomore year, he did Texas Tech online, got through a bunch of math courses. By his senior year, him and another friend were petitioning the public school to have calculus. And so they actually got a calculus teacher for like 5 kids. And then my brother went on, he decided he just had this huge love of math. So he went on to university, got a degree in math and also in physics, and worked for NASA. And then NASA paid for his graduate degree in computer engineering. And he basically was unschooled. And I know people say, well, he wasn't unschooled because he went to public school in Texas Tech. Well, no, what he did was he he and my mom figured out what he needed in order to get what he wanted, because there's an age, I think around middle school, late middle school, early high school, where kids, they they know what they're interested in and they want to really delve into what they're interested in. And math hit him just at the right time. Math and computers. This was late 90s, early 2000s, by the way. And so he was really interested in all the new technology that was going on with computers. And so he always had been. He had been taking apart computers since he was a little kid. So, anyways, he's got a great resume now, and so yeah, that's my unschooling story of my brother.
That's really cool, and I know people that do that. People in my family, do that. My brother and sister-in-law have done that with their kids, and, I've seen similar trajectories. People will gravitate to what they're interested in, and because kids just aren't just gonna sit around all day. They're interested in things, and you can guide them a little bit.
Yeah.
You can really push them a long ways, just by letting them go. And this is one of the things that I hate about the public school system, and being an anarchist, I really wish we had market-based schooling, because I think
Oh
that
my gosh.
you would see not people not having to, because I mean, let's be honest, like homeschooling isn't for everybody. Every parent, is not capable or interested or whatever, right? Or has the time or to do the homeschooling themselves. Like, I think there's a much better way that you could school people. Maybe not early development, right? I'm talking, maybe homeschool them until they're 12 or something, and let them go into a school that is not a state school, that is geared towards their interests. Let's say if a kid's incredibly artistic or musically gifted or whatever it is. Um, Somebody is really into STEM, you could have dedicated programs that are for these kids, that are leaning into their interests and are not trying to like homogenize and sort of spit out kids that have the exact same aptitudes across the board. I think that would be a much better system than what we have today.
So actually, on I do a space and I also have a podcast. And my co-host, Uncle Owl, he has a pretty good view on all of this, and he calls it the Socratic approach. And basically, kids are learning, they're not learning actual information when they're in elementary and middle school. They are learning how to be humans. They're learning morals. They're learning the world around them. They're not learning, World War II history dates and the Krebs cycle and things like that. And if you think about it, like in your past, in your, elementary school, you weren't learning that kind of stuff. You were learning about the world around you, which makes sitting in a classroom so hard. However, Plato's, which is where Uncle Owl got this Socratic approach. He was reading Plato, and because he's like that, and I'm not quite like that. But anyways, Plato said that um, basically apprenticeship when they get to about teen years is when that's and Uncle Owl has a great way of putting it, but basically education is about learning in those times, and it needs to be hands-on, it needs to be applicable to their lives, and it's just at this crux of time when they're um you know like maybe 13, 14, even up to 16, where they can go into something and actually put in the time and energy that they need, and they have the attention span for it, and they have enough of a knowledge of the world around them. So I would challenge you on the not everybody can homeschool. I definitely think that's, other than daycare and needing a place for your kids to go while you work, I do think everybody can homeschool. I believe that you could do a much better job keeping your kids at home, teaching them to do chores and work around the house with you. And then when they hit that age where they could have the attention span and the energy, and they have the knowledge, you just propel them. You just give them a little push. They want to do something, and you just say, "Oh, here's the tools," and they just really flourish. And that's what happened to in my family. Actually, it happened with my sister and my other brother as well. Um, they almost take charge of their own lives at a certain point, and you just say, "Okay, here's all the tools. Let me help you build your road." And that's really, I believe that's really all that's needed, is just a secure home life when they're younger, and to propel them when they get a little older. I think they can do it on their own. They don't need you necessarily. They can do it on their own at that point.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was alluding to. I didn't want to
Yeah.
say it, but there are people that don't have a great home life. That was me, right? And so
Okay. That's a valid
there
point.
are parents, let's be honest, who have no business even raising children, right? Like, and they have children, and so like I like all options on the table. I would love if there was a group of people out there that were competing for your dollars, and their goal was to provide your child the best education possible in relationship to their interests and aptitudes, right? And you could send them there, and some people would actually take much better care of your kids and educate them better than the state would. That is an improvement in my book, and I think, like I said, a
Absolutely.
lot of people, you have alcoholic parents and people with mental illness, like
Yeah.
maybe not having your kids around those people all day is in their best interest. Like I said, I was one of them. I tell you, it's a real thing. So I like all options around the table. But I think we're discussing, and you're discussing, people that have stable home lives and aren't crazy and care about their kids enough to want to educate them. I think
Good
for
point.
those people, the more time you spend with your kids, the better, generally. So I just don't want to paint with a broad brush and say, one solution is best for everybody.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that.
So talk to me about some misconceptions with homeschooling, because I think there's a bunch, right? Like I think there's a lot of memes and tropes about that community that are floating around, and I think I know why they exist and where they come from. But I would love to hear from somebody who directly does this. What do you think are the biggest misconceptions?
So, are you thinking about socialization?
Well, that's one of them. Yeah, that's always the big. Your kid's going to be socially retarded if you like that. Yeah, probably the first one everyone goes to.
So, I think that's a psyop, to get people not to homeschool their kids. If you talk to any actual homeschooler, they will roll their eyes at you so big. Um, I've only had one person ask me that. It was a neighbor. He said, "Oh, you homeschool your kids? How do they get socialized?" And I said, "Well, they're playing with your children right now, so argument invalid." I don't so there so as far as socialization, there are when I was younger, it was harder because we were kind of hiding from the state because there was so much gray area and um so that I can see that from when I was younger. I was very socialized even when I was young and we were hiding from people. I was still, I we didn't have homeschool co-ops as much, but we knew other homeschoolers that we hung out with. We hung out with the neighborhood kids. We were involved in church, and there's other things other than school. And also, can we talk about like what your kids are being socialized with if they do go to a normal school? There are some wonderful people in schools, and there are some terrible people in schools, and your kid is being exposed to all of them. And I don't have a problem with my kids being involved with or meeting people that are, on the seedier side, but I would like to be there when they do, as opposed to just dropping them off in the box and saying, "Good luck. Hope you figure it out." So when I was a kid, we also I volunteered at a homeless shelter. So when I was a teenager, I was homeschooled mostly. So I went from first grade through third grade, or halfway through third grade, homeschooled, and then I went to public school through my freshman year of high school, and then I was homeschooled after that. Um, so I started driving almost, I think, just maybe a year after I started being homeschooled again. And I was a punk rock kid, and I did,
Really?
yeah. And
Interesting. Tell me more.
so I did like, have you heard Food Not Bombs? I was a
Yeah.
vegan kid. Yeah, so I did like Food Not Bombs and handed out food to homeless people. I lived on the border of Mexico at the time, and I would take groups of my friends over to Mexico, and we'd hand out like supplies that people needed, just really basic stuff, toys for kids and supply like makeup and just random stuff. So that was my socialization, and I drug my younger siblings along, including my um, brilliant little computer whiz brother. That's what we used to do: go to Mexico, go to do Food Not Bombs. Um, I went to backyard punk shows, and I threw some of them, and I actually ended up being a promoter for some small bands for a little bit. So yeah, that was my scene. That's what I maximized on.
That was a curveball that I did not see coming. I gotta say, I feel a little bit bad. I feel slightly bigoted because when I hear homeschooling, I know like, I'm in the libertarian community. Like I know the type, and oftentimes it's religiously motivated or at least informed.
Sure.
You get these images, a Little House on the Prairie, and sort of like this trad
So
con type of life, right? And this seems
I've
very
met I've met very few homeschoolers like that, and I've been in the
really.
homeschooling community since the mid '80s, and I have met very few homeschoolers like that.
So
Very few.
what was your family like then? Like, were they similarly minded? Like, so now I'm picturing like kind of like a hippie family. Like, what's your family
Yeah.
like?
So, my parents so our homeschooling was religiously influenced and hippie influenced. So it kinda just my family is from Colorado, and Colorado is very, hippie. Um,
Well, it's weird, right? It's like a border. There's a border between hippie and Christian. So you got like Denver, and then you got like the hippies are up towards Boulder, and then down south to Colorado Springs, that's like all the Christians, right? Like
right? Well,
it's a
my family is not from the Front Range. They're from, like, Southwest area,
oh,
and
okay,
but
okay.
and so, yeah, it's definitely more hippie there. Are you from Colorado that you know all that stuff?
No, no.
Alright.
My wife's family is from Utah, and
Oh, yeah.
I used to work for
Okay.
Oracle, and
Okay.
we had the headquarters there in Denver, and sorry,
Yeah, in Brunswick.
Colorado Springs. No, it was Colorado Springs. So yeah, I think it was. So I had a bunch of coworkers out there. I've been out there, know a little bit, yeah, but never lived there.
Yeah, so my parents kind of were on both sides of that of that border between Christian and hippie. So that yeah, that's basically where we were. My my younger my younger sister, she tried to be as normal as possible. I just didn't fit in, so I went the punk rock side. And my other little brother, I say little, they're in their like late 30s now, early 40s. Um, my other brother, he was fairly normal. He fit in pretty well, but now he is homeschooling, has 6 kids, and was living in a school bus. So I guess I guess they've got some hippie in them for sure. And then my youngest brother, he's more into, I guess, music wise. He was there with me. I was the oldest and he was the youngest. He was the computer guy, and so he was into punk rock and metal for a while, and then he got into like electronic music, which I never did. So
Well, this is super interesting. So I'm sorry to divert, but I want to probe a
that's
little
all
bit
right.
more. Like
That's all right.
the family stuff is interesting to me. So when you say you were like Christian hippie, like those seems to be somewhat contradictory.
Sure.
And so what was it like? Like what was the religious background, and how did it overlap with the sort of like hippie vegan kind of like what was that intersection point like? I'm trying to understand what that mental model was that your parents raised you in.
So as far as churches, we went to a whole bunch of different churches. Um, I think my family is just we're not very conformist at all. I mean, as you can tell. So I think we went to a bunch of churches because we didn't quite fit in. We are Christians, but like my whole family we're all still Christians, but we all go to different kinds of churches. Some don't go to church, but I think our biggest thing as far as churches, we just are followers of Jesus and read the Bible, and sometimes that fits in with some churches. Most of the time, we find something that we don't agree on, and the churches get really upset at us. And I hate the way that sounds, but that's just kind of what it is. I've I joined a church several years ago, and my mom said, "Do they know what they're getting into?" I'm like, "What do you mean, mom?" And it ended up that I left, and the pastor was yelling at me when I left. So that's just we don't quite fit into any church, but we do try. I mean, like we go to church every Sunday, but it doesn't always. I've learned to be kind of standoffish a little bit. I do well with people individually, but usually just not well with organizations, which kind of defines my entire, I don't know, every part of me seems to be like that.
You were like my spirit animal. Like I resonate so much with that. It's crazy. Although I started out Christian, I'm an atheist now. I'd like to know, like, if you can encapsulate, like, what are your beliefs now? I'm not what you were raised in, but do you know where do you stand now? If there is a way to encapsulate that in like a TLDR version.
Um, I simplify everything. So, I just I believe in Jesus. I believe in the Nicene Creed could pretty much sum up what I believe. But a lot of craziness has gone on in all the churches, in all the Christian churches um, and there seems to be a lot of um, people that want to take control in churches, and I don't do very well with that, I guess. So that ends up where I have a rub a lot of times with people. And they don't expect it. Like you said, this kind of came out of nowhere. Well, it kind of does for everybody. And I'm very normie looking now, and so people just don't see it. But so as far as Christian though, the Nicene Creed would sum it up. I read my Bible daily, and I pray, and I have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, and all the things that you want to hear and that church people want to hear. But then they'll disagree with me on something, and I'll say, "Oh, I disagree on that." And then sometimes it ends up a point of contention. The reason I got yelled at in my past church was because I told them that we were going to go to another church while they were masking because I didn't want my children masked. And he said, well, as a nurse, you should know, blah, blah, blah. And I said,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
Yeah. So it turned into a whole thing. And so just like things like that that aren't necessarily related to what I believe, as far as Christianity, that
Got it. So you're not necessarily having disagreements about
right.
doctrinal type of stuff. It might be more administrative type of
Yeah,
issues like masking, or some sort of power dynamics in the church, or something toxic going on, or
usually, yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
That's cool. And I don't know exactly what you mean uh, when you say, and it sounds, I hate to sound like Jordan Peterson, but like, what do you mean? Like yeah, I believe in Jesus, and I believe in. Uh, I don't know exactly what that means, right? Because it feels like there's so many interpretations of things. You know, there's so much you know argumentation even amongst people
Sure.
that are Christians about what it actually means, like what's literal, what's metaphorical. It seems very difficult for me to suss out. And the reason I'm probing at this is, and I also have another guest coming on later today, Darwin to Jesus, who's a former atheist, now a Christian, and so I'm interested in the topic,
Okay.
and so I'm just curious what people's mental models are. Because I don't understand, I guess, especially since going atheist and sort of disabusing myself of some of the really unsophisticated notions about religion. Um, I want to understand where people are at now, because I think it's evolved a little bit. I think people have changed a little bit since the last time I was going to church. When I
Uh-huh.
talk to Christians today, it seems like a lot has changed, and so I'm trying to get my head around like have I missed something? Has there been a shift? Where are people's mindsets at now? So if you just give me like what you kind of believe, like specifically, I would love to hear it.
Okay. So I believe, um, so the Nicene Creed, that Jesus is the Son of God, that he came to earth to die for our sins, that Jesus is God, and that's kind of a strange mental thing for me. I believe in the Trinity.
Yeah, and that's something I was going to
That
ask.
stuff.
Like, is that you mentioned the Nicene Creed? And I grew up Catholic. I eventually became Protestant, and it was one of those things that I accepted uncritically for a while. And then I got really deep into philosophy, and I'm
Uh-huh.
like, hold on a second, this is a category violation, right? You can't have one, but also three, and you can't be, it's a Aristotelian logic, right? Like A equals A, right? You can't have A equals B, like these
So
a
the
and
w-
B, if they're different, right? It's a category error.
I mean I can see that. I can see what you mean by that. So one thing I do believe you have to take it on faith. But another thing is that like if you so I started talking to my brother about this because he had a kind of a crisis of faith when he was in school, and he was taking things like quantum physics and stuff like that. And so we talk a lot about that. I can't really go into super depth with it, but he can. And um, I think that I mean I get the Aristotelian logic and the philosophy, but how would you I feel like we are limited to three dimensions. How would you explain something in, a sixth dimension to somebody in a third dimension?
For sure, for sure. And I'm open to the possibilities, and I'm not one of these people that's looking to change anyone's mind or disprove or debunk.
Yeah,
That's not
same.
where I'm at. I'm just genuinely
Same.
curious, and I'm thinking like if I talk to somebody, maybe I'm missing something, because it just doesn't make any sense to me that you would be like, okay, well, God, and I'm out there somewhere, wherever that would be, and then I'm still over there, but then I'm sending this separate person over here to do something, but it's actually me as well.
Sure.
It breaks my brain. Like I can't. It just feels completely illogical, and it's something I have been able to reconcile. I'm like, what are we doing here?
Sure. I can completely agree with that. It was something I struggled with for a long time, and I kind of just, well, I think I'm going to go on faith with this. And the reason I'm okay with going on faith is because I do feel like I can pray and that God has spoken to me personally, which I mean, I might just be psycho, but it makes me feel better, And since I've decided I'm just going to take something on faith. I seem to get answers as I'm probing. And I don't go that far into depth about different dimensions. Like I said, my brother does because he does physics. But I just lost my train of thought.
No, no, it's cool. Like that's you basically landed on I have to take it on faith, and
Yeah,
that I used to be in that boat too, and then I
sure.
got to a point where I think I found out that a lot of things I used to believe were completely false about the state and about religion, and
Right.
I become ultra skeptical. I'm like, hold on, not going to fool me again. Hold on a second.
I get that.
But what I will say is that I've had some very profound psychedelic experiences that have completely opened my eyes from an experiential standpoint, where I
Yeah.
never had a direct encounter with anything that could be classified as divine or transcendent before. Boy, sure have now. I don't know what it is. I'm still searching, right? So I'm
So,
like, there's something going on, but I don't know what it is exactly.
like I said, like I really think that's different dimensional type stuff. And because I'm stuck in a 3D world, I can't understand a 5D world. And I'm okay with that. And that's where I've landed. Like I'm okay with not understanding some things and for there to be a, huge battle going on in, whatever dimensions, I don't understand it. And, if God says, I'm three people in one and I'm going to send one of my third. I'm like, I don't understand that. And I'm going to send him there to save you from, whatever. I'm, I'm like, okay, that sounds good to me. And I think I've developed enough of a personal relationship with God. Like I said, I don't know if it's in my mind, but I don't feel like it is. Um, that I can just say, yeah, okay, I trust you in that and move on with life. And that's where I'm at. That's my beliefs.
Yeah, and I think you're probably in a way healthier spot than I am, honestly, because I
You know what? Life is a journey, and we have to figure that part out for ourselves. And that as much time as you need, and as much space as you need. I mean, I'm all about learning and moving forward personally. There's a lot to be said for that. This is a journey for all of us. Wherever you land is where you land. As long as you're honest and try to be healthy.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, it is what it is.
for sure. What I mean by that is I think that overthinking sometimes is a little bit of a disease, right? Like
Yeah.
it can be, and I think that's where I've landed. And I've become. I think Jordan Peterson has done a great job of presenting a more sophisticated view of Christianity. One that actually, is not super fundamentalist and is like, well, okay, let's be real.
I greatly appreciate his viewpoints because I think that Christianity has really done itself disfavors by, like I said, I break everything down to the simplest terms possible. And if you want to talk about like doctrines and stuff, I'm like, well, I have my beliefs, but I don't want to. I don't feel dogmatic in a lot of stuff because I think it's just divisive and it's just done itself a lot of disservice. And it's run by people who want to be in control. And I always have had an issue with that.
That's another part too, is that this is not something that has evolved in a vacuum, and
No.
there's been human beings involved at every step of the process, and this is where I think Peterson is super sophisticated. Where it's like, look, these are, essentially, evolved myths that have deep truths embedded in those narratives,
Mhm.
and it's super important and it's very real, and these stories are important. The redemption arc, the sort of, taking up your cross, and like all these things, suffering as a means of redemption. Like there's so many really deep truths that are in there, and if you throw it all out, you're getting the baby out with the bathwater. And so I'm back trying to rescue the baby, uh, but also like I have this very difficult time because like I've even been considering going back to church because I think there's a bunch of utility, social utility. There's probably mental health benefits. Like there's a bunch of data around, people that go to church and have community. But I can't trick myself into believing it for real. And I've been to a lot of churches where they make a lot of demands, like
Yeah,
you must believe the earth was created in 6 literal days, and and things like
right.
that, like the real fundy stuff.
Yeah.
And I can't do that. I can't trick myself into believing it. And so I'm kind of in a weird spot where I would
So
almost like to reverse the clock and be like, well, can I just, you know go back to when I believe this stuff, and my life would be simpler.
I think that's where I have an issue too. Like I have a hard time like being involved in a church that if they don't give me a lot of freedom, it's not going to work out very well. And um, yeah, I have that exact same issue. Um, well, not exact same issue. I do, I'm okay with believing it. I just have a hard time with people trying to dictate what I need to believe or yeah, or have any kind of power over me.
Yeah, and I also think one of the issues I've had, and I don't know if you have the same problem, but is this because it's like kind of like in a Kafka trap. Because if you truly believe that like are born evil, and the second you were born, you needed to be redeemed, you have to, you know, you have to have a savior and all this stuff. And also the concept of hell, scaring kids. I remember being scared to death. Like you're like, wait a minute, I can die. I'm gonna be tortured for the like eternity. Like there's no coming back. And like there's a lot of trauma that's inflicted around that stuff. And so like I think that it tells kids something really bad, which they're broken, like they're flawed from the start, and we're all flawed people for sure. I'm not saying that we're not, but it seems like a very unhealthy way to try to drive that home. And I think
Yeah.
it was potentially driven by power because like the church sold indulgences. You pay us money, we can absolve your sins. There's been a bunch of stuff that's evolved around that whole thing. It's always rubbed me the wrong way, and it's certainly given me some religious trauma because of it. I mean, if it's true, fine. That's I think there's people who have sincere belief that it is true, and you need to do this. This is why religion is so important. I just want to get your thoughts around that because that's something that's always
So
troubled me.
yeah, okay. So as far as I'm not sure. So I guess I I'm not sure if I believe that well, I guess I do believe that you're born in sin, but I also so there was a time when, David sinned with Bathsheba and she um conceived and then she gave birth and then um the prophet Nathan told David that he was that the baby was going to die, and then the baby did die, and David was grieving while he was sick, while the baby was sick. And then when the baby died, he ate and did fine. And everybody was like, "Why are you okay?" And he said, "Well, I know that the baby, I know that I won't see the baby here, but I'll go to see the baby. I don't know. I'll go to see my son in heaven," or something like that. So that tells me right there, unless David believed he was going straight to hell and he was going to see the baby in hell, which I don't think is the case. I think the case is that he believed he would see the baby in heaven. And I think because David had a close relationship with God, he would be able to know that kind of thing. So, as far as I don't believe that kids go to hell, that's what I'm getting at with that. Um, I don't know about age of accountability or anything like that. I don't know how that works. That's one of those things that I'm like, well, I believe that God is good and that every good and perfect gift comes from God, it says in the Bible, and that God is love. And because of that, I believe that God will, um, He's not going to allow children, to just go to hell because they didn't accept Him as their Lord and Savior. I don't believe that at all. On the other hand, I do believe in hell. I believe it's reserved for people who make a deliberate choice against God. And I don't believe in purgatory, but so this isn't canonical, and this is my own personal belief. I will just say right here. This is probably, hopefully not heretical, but possibly. So, but I do believe that if you are in a place in hell and you cry out to God, I think He would save you. So, and I believe that because I'm a nurse, and I've had a lot of friends that have passed away and a lot of family members and stuff. And so I get really interested in near death experiences. And I've talked to a lot of,
Mm.
I've talked to a lot of patients about near death experiences and stuff. And I have heard people say that they died, they went to hell, they remembered like a Sunday school song or something, cried out to Jesus, and He brought them like out of that. And so I do believe that that happens. And I believe that's because God is the ultimate good. And, but I also believe in hell because there are people who deserve to be there and they're not going to cry out to God, and they would rather burn in hell than cry out to God. And so I do believe that. And like I said, this might be somewhere where I get kicked out of a church, and that's whatever. It is
Sorry.
whatever,
If so,
yeah.
I'm very sorry.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time, so,
No, well, this is interesting because, like, I've come to believe that hell isn't real. That's not actually a real place.
sure.
I think that it is one of those things that evolved to deal with certain concepts. So what I mean by that is I think that there is uh a certain type of person. Let's say, for example, somebody does something terrible. There's a, let's say raping a bunch of kids on an island for 20 years and then commit suicide, and there's no accountability or anything, and it's like it's this longing for justice that people have, like I we didn't get to exact punishment here in this life, and I think it's a story that evolved like, well, God takes care of it in the end, and they're going to be punished. They're in a bad place, and it helps us move on, very much like I think the redemption story is actually a way to for society to deal with people who have done such horrible things that there's no other way to come back from. Right. So I think there's whatever it is, I don't care what the issue is, but there's some things I think society is determined that just you can't atone for it in this life, and so there has to be like a transcendent redeeming, a person that steps in and redeems you, and I don't think it's actually true, but I think it's a social utility, right? Because then that person can somehow make amends, re-enter society, and it's been taken care of somehow. I suspect that's what's happening. I don't know. I have no clue. But I also believe potentially in something called heaven. Not only because my personal experiences, but you mentioned the near-death experiences. That's a super interesting topic, as well as when you overlay the DMT experiences. I'm not sure if
Uh-huh.
you've known about Rick Strassman's work.
A little bit, yeah.
There's a striking resemblance between DMT experiences and near-death experiences. They're almost
Right,
identical.
right.
And there's an hypothesis that endogenous DMT is dumped. It's sort of like when you die and you kind of have the same experience. And it might even be a portal to wherever we came from. And so I'm open to even something that out there. Um, so I don't know where I'm going with that, but that when you brought up near-death experiences, that's kind of how I conceptualize something like heaven.
Well, the reason I believe, near-death experience is a little bit different is because some of those, like, people will come back and say, "I saw this person, and I saw that person, and that was going on here, and this was going on there," and it's true, and it's hard to tell unless I haven't talked to all these people personally. I've heard talk to people about near death experiences, but they haven't told me anything like that, like, "Oh, I was up on the 2nd floor and then there was a doctor that looked, oh, there's the doctor. That's the one." I haven't had anything like that. So that yeah, I'm interested in that. But I wanted to go back to hell, and I believe so have you heard about Nephilim or any of
I have. This
yeah,
is sort of
okay.
like going back to the kind of like cryptid type of stuff, like ancient humanoid type of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that are sort of like. So I think the Nephilim story is sort of like the mixture between like a angel or a demon and a person, or so, like I don't know. I don't know all the details, but I've heard of it.
So yeah, it's like angels came down and 200 of them. If you read the book of Enoch, the 200 of them came down and um took the women, and then they had the giants. If you read the book of Enoch, there were like the demons were okay, so the demons are um angels that mated with the women, and then they had children. Those children are the Nephilim. The demons are disembodied Nephilim, basically. But then there were like DNA experiments going on, and they were making these weird monster things. And so there's like 3 or 4 different types of humanoid type things. Anyways, I hell, I believe, was made for those specific 200 angels. So that's and then the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, the demons, are they're not in hell, they are strapped to earth. I probably just got off on a rabbit trail we didn't mean to
No,
go
no,
down, right?
no. It's actually super interesting. I've heard like just little peripheral things around this, so I'd like to know more. It sounds absolutely bonkers to me, but that doesn't mean it's not necessarily true.
Right, I mean, well, what's funny is, okay, so my mom told me about Epstein Island in 1996, I remember. She's like, "There's
Wow.
this island, and the Clintons go there, and blah, blah, blah."
Must've
So
been listening to Alex Jones or something.
she was that was before Alex Jones, and I asked her the other day, like, "How did you find out all this stuff?" She's like, "I don't know, I just got these things in the mail, and I'd read them and listen to the radio, and oh my gosh, I can't believe that's going on." And, so yeah, she told me about that way back in the day, and my mom, yeah, she's very much into all the it's, like, out in the open now, but, 30 years ago, it was so crazy that I was like, "Mom, the Clintons go to a child island? Well, what? That sounds so bonkers. Are you kidding me with this junk?" And so, when I hear things like the Nephilim and I think about I'm like, "Well, do I believe it? I don't know, but I'm gonna investigate it 'cause, I mean, I just feel like there's so many things that I could accept. Yeah, yeah, that could be true, but maybe it's not. I'm good with that too. Just interesting." So,
Yeah, that's the way
that's
I
one of
am
those
too. It's
things.
like everybody gets so serious sometimes about, it's bullshit. I don't. It's like, well, yeah, well, fine, but like, it's fun to talk about. It's fun to
It is.
hypothesize about, and you don't know everything.
You don't know everything,
There's so
that's
many
right.
things that we thought were completely, settled, and then all of like the Egyptian pyramids, right? Like that
Right.
news, the scan, and everyone's like, "Holy shit!" And that would completely overthrow our entire understanding of history. And
Absolutely.
this stuff is out there. You look at Randall Carlson's work, and you look Graham Hank. Like some of it's probably bullshit, but a bunch of it's probably true, and we just don't know. So I try to be open minded about it, and I think
Yeah,
it's fun
same.
to play with the ideas and not take it so damn seriously.
Right, and I feel like there's stuff that I definitely believe in, there's stuff I definitely don't believe in, but a lot of it fits into gray area. I have, like, a scale, like, "Hey, I mostly believe that. I don't quite believe that, maybe about 10% or 90% or"
Yeah, confidence interval.
Yeah, exactly,
Cool.
exactly.
I think more people could be that way. I think we get very caught up in being tribalistic, right? Like
Yeah,
whatever team I'm on, I believe that I'm a Baptist, and this is what we all believe,
right,
and there's no deviation from that, or no ability to
right.
play with ideas or anything. And that doesn't go for religion; it goes for whatever your political
Everything.
leanings are. Like humans will make a tribe out of absolutely anything. It is so hyper annoying.
Yeah, hyper annoying, that's the word.
Oh, man, I don't know how we ended up here, but I'm really enjoying this conversation. Like, should I talk about homeschooling more, or should we talk about,
Whatever you want.
what is there anything else like a topic that you're really interested in right now that might not be, homeschool or religious related? Because like, I I have several topics on the podcast that I just beat like a dead horse. I didn't even expect to talk about anarchism in this episode because I have so many anarchists and libertarians on the show. It's like, I've been trying to mix it up a little bit, and like, here we are again.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? Like, I love, so many subjects, and and I think a lot of people have a lot of knowledge in a lot of areas that I don't, and so I'm always looking for new areas to explore.
No, there's not, but I will not that I can think of, but I think that we all are I I think that there's, like, this, group that I hate to say it like we make a tribe out of, but we kind of have made a tribe out of, and we're all kind of interested in the same things, like homeschooling and anarchism and, um, Nephilim and religion and everything. I mean, I and the music kinda goes in with it. I mean, we all I don't know, I hate to say it's tribalistic, so I don't know that I can think outside of the the groups that we're all in, you know?
Well, it's fine. I mean, I shit on tribalism a little bit, but it's actually got a lot of utility as well. So like, I understand its value, and especially if you're,
Yeah.
but I think a lot of it is being intentional about it and understanding what's going on with the tribalism that can actually
Yeah.
bring group cohesion. It's very pro social, but it just seems to get co-opted a lot, and people get dragged along by it as opposed to intentionally dealing with it. So
Right.
rubs me the wrong way a little bit. So maybe we can talk about
Yeah.
this. Like, how are you fitting in the world? Because you've got a lot of strange views like me, and I have a real hard time. Like, I watch the world that's going on, and like even stuff like what's going on with the tariffs, right?
Oh,
You've got, and I tweeted yesterday. I'm not sure if you saw this, but I was like, it's a wild thought that one person, the president of the United States, If he changed his view on tariffs, it would cause 90% of Americans to change their views on tariffs.
Right? That's
That's a
wild.
wild thought, right? So
Yeah.
so 'cause and what I mean by that, in case it wasn't immediately obvious, is like the Democrats would reflexively be against whatever he is. Because right
Right.
now, all weirdly, the Democrats are like, "Yo, no, no tariffs and taxes. We don't want that. That's bad." They would immediately go the opposite direction, and Republicans would flip the other way too. So one person would
Mhm.
change the minds of 300 plus million people overnight for no reason whatsoever other than group membership.
Yeah, that's a whole wild concept to me, 'cause actually like, there's a lot of things that I like that Trump is doing,
Ooh,
to
maybe we talk about that.
well, I mean, mostly, like, getting rid of a lot of stuff. Um,
Did he really get a lot of stuff
I
though?
don't know, it's not really looking that way, right?
Yeah, here we go back to
Okay.
marketing versus,
Right.
reality, right?
Right,
And so
exactly, and
I
that's the problem I have with him because, like, he's saying, "Oh, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that," and then everybody's all on board, and look what we're doing, and we're really I mean, I'm waiting, you know? The Department of Education is gonna go away. Has
no,
it
it's
really gone
not.
away? It
Did you pay
hasn't.
attention to what he actually did?
He moved it to a bunch of different
He
other
all he did is took those
Yeah,
functions and slid them to different agencies and said,
right,
done. No, it didn't actually go away. And this is a problem
right,
I have with him, is that like Doge, for example. Oh, there's all these savings. Look at all this savings. We saved all this money. But if you actually look at the new CR that he passed, which by the way, he
right,
attacked Thomas Massey and
right,
tried to primary him because Thomas Massey called it out as bullshit. This is expansion of government spending, and it actually codified the removal of those Doge cuts. If I'm kind of a dork, but Congress, if they appropriate money, it must be spent, and that CR forced expenditures of all that money, erased every penny that Doge claimed to have saved, and Trump was fighting the only person who was like, "We need to have cuts," and so it's like it's all in my view, it's like it's bullshit, it's political theater. He's
right.
not serious about any of it.
Nope.
Um, and so I'm like when people
Well,
say
and
like
that's
I like what Trump's doing, I'm like, okay, where? And it's not like you look at Cash Patel, completely co-opted. There's no arrests. There's no Epstein files. There's no like it's all bullshit. And you go to like RFK, like oh he's gonna save everybody. And walks in day one, he's like the greatest existential threat to human health is anti-Semitism, and plus let's do the MMR vaccine push. Like what are we doing?
Right, right, I agree. And so this is how I would fit into society. I would say something like that and then say what you're saying. You know what I mean? Like, say something like, "Okay, I like what Trump is doing because," and then point out, like, what he says he's doing, and then be like, "But what actually is happening to," like, that's how I fit into society. Sneak it in.
And this is where I can't do
You
it
can't do it. I get it. I get it.
because I try to talk to people, and it's eventually it slides into, well, you have to trust the plan. He's got a plan. He's got 5D
Oh my
chess
gosh,
that's going
5D
on,
chest.
and
Yeah.
there's just an absolute refusal to accept reality on any side, and
And
so
if you look at his first term, I mean, it was complete crap.
it
I
was
mean, it
the
was
worst term in human history. And this is one of the things I raise often on the show, is that if you look at metrics, he added more to the United States debt, the federal debt, in
Mhm.
4 years than every single president from George Washington until Barack Obama took office combined. He did that
Right.
in 4
In
years,
4 years, yeah.
and if you know anything about economics, that's inflationary.
Right.
You're printing money out of thin air, and then, people are like, "Well, Joe Biden's inflation." It's like, "Well, no,
No.
you printed a shit ton of money, and then prices went up when Biden was in office."
And
That
send out the stimmy checks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But that
it
stuff is really yeah, economically, it doesn't work. It doesn't work like that, yeah.
and then have him take over now and is like, well, we're not cutting anything. We're actually going to spend a shit ton more money, and we're going to raise taxes on Americans, the largest tax increase in human history, by the way, via these tariffs. And then all of a sudden, Republicans are all like, oh, hey,
Oh, I love it.
taxes are wonderful. Like this is, I'm like, what? Yeah, like my brain is broken. I'm telling you, like I can't function in this world. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills all the time, And the longer time goes on, the more alone I feel. I feel like I'm like that meme where it was like, yes, you are all wrong. That if you've seen that one,
Mhm.
like that's
Mhm.
how I feel every day, and it's super frustrating because like I'm trying to talk sense. I want to have like a rational, reasonable conversation, and it feels like it's becoming more and more impossible as time goes on. And maybe it's just time to move to the woods and
Yeah.
go thorough on this thing.
Yeah. I don't know. Feel the same. I think like actually talking about what I actually believe doesn't happen a whole lot. I just kind of think about it and yeah, I'll agree with you on that. And maybe that's part of being female because I can relate to people on stuff and just maximize on that and then just not say a whole lot about what I don't believe or just or like I said, slide it in like, yeah, it's cool that he's cutting the Department of Education, except he's not actually cutting it. So yeah, that sucks. Actually, one of my friends made a meme. I don't know if he made it or if I think he made it, but it says it's got the a Breaking Bad guy. It's not White, but the other
Jesse?
no, not Jesse. The Dominican guy that owns the chicken place.
Oh, Gus Fring.
Yeah. It has the picture of him and it, the "We are not the same."
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll have to send it to you. But it's like we it says you wanna cut the Department of Education to send power back to the state schools, and I want to cut the Department of Education to send power back to the parents. And that's basically my whole view.
Mm.
Like I want to cut public education out. I don't want it to be a thing. I mean, I get that there's a big step in there that people need free childcare. Otherwise, I don't know what. But I don't. I
Boy,
do.
that's really what the state schooling kinda turned into, right? Like,
That's
we did
exactly what it is.
we've created this economy where you can't survive or it's very difficult to survive on a single income. And so it's like, well, this is we're basically, it's daycare so both parents can work.
Right. Yeah, and they did it on purpose. I mean,
Mhm.
it's part of the entire. I mean, if you read some of those Marxist documents like back in the 1800s, they actually did that on purpose and women are eating it up. I want to go back to work. I want to work. I want to and we tried for a little bit for me not to work and I've worked part-time a lot and I'm working full-time now. But they've made it absolutely hard. It takes it if you want to homeschool your kids and you think that that's important, it takes dedication in that area more than it does in the actual like book learning area. It takes dedication to be able to have a parent home or to figure out how you're going to do daycare. That's basically how you're going to make ends meet or how you're going to do daycare. That's the biggest hurdle with homeschooling, in my opinion. That's the part we've struggled with, and that's when we've figured it out every stage along the way. It
So
just
that's a great segue into the kind of how I want to wrap up here is let's say I'm somebody who's watching this and like I'm actually considering doing it. I'm persuaded by the arguments. Maybe I can give it a shot. Like, what challenges do you primarily see with somebody trying to get started with homeschooling?
yeah, that's easy. The challenges I see are figuring out how you're going to do daycare, how you're going to do childcare, and we've done everything. I worked weekend nights, and my husband worked, a regular. He owned a business, so he worked Monday through Friday, normal times, and I took care of the kids, and then I worked Friday and Saturday nights, and he took care of the kids on the weekends. I've had a nanny twice, and my kids can um, pretty much take care of themselves now because they're older. Well, they can take care of themselves. They can drive and everything now, and they do their own homework by themselves. So it's not a big deal anymore. And so that's the hardest thing is figuring out that for us at least. The next hurdle I think would be people think that they need to have school at home and they imagine their kids sitting at desks 8 hours a day and they're up at a blackboard teaching their kids. And that is not how 99% of homeschoolers do it. Some homeschoolers do it that way, and that just seems outrageous to me. You can actually teach through elementary in about 3 hours a week, and your kid's going to be light years beyond elementary kids their age. So if you, I mean, 3 hours a week, you should be able to fit that in on a weekend, or a couple nights a week, or I mean, less time than you spend doing homework with your second grader. You can teach them everything they need to know, because they don't have to fill out useless paperwork. They don't have to, if they know all their addition facts, you don't have to have them doing a bunch of crap, busy work at home. And you can spend that time connecting with them instead. So, yeah, so people trying to replicate school at home is, I think, a really big problem. Once you get past that mental hurdle of, oh, I don't actually have to have a blackboard in my house, I don't actually have to have desks in my house. Yeah, that once you get past that mental hurdle, I think that's a huge thing. And I think the third hurdle is just starting, just having the drive to start. Once you start, though, it's pretty easy to keep going. I think just that drive to start, it's like the drive to work out. You have to have that drive to just get going. But once you get going, you're good. Like, it's not that big of a deal. So, if people want to get started, they can visit my page on Twitter. I do a space with two guys. John Says Stuff and Uncle Owl on X. And my at is Bowtied Queen Bee on X, and we do a space every Wednesday at 7 Eastern time, and we also have a podcast. And I don't do anything for money at the moment. I guess I don't care that much, because I have a regular job, so I don't want to feel tied to doing this. This is just kind of a passion for me. But I've got a pinned tweet that will tell you how to get through most of your homeschooling. And my DMs are always open, and I'm always helping everybody in the DMs.
Well,
And
you
yeah.
just answered my last two questions, which
Okay.
were like resources to get started if somebody's looking to get going. Cool. Reach out to you, and those resources you mentioned, and then the other one was where to find you online. And you just answered my
Yeah.
questions for me, doing my job. That's great.
Well, since we have a podcast, I know what you're going to ask on that part. I do
You
know
got
that
it.
part. Um, but I do love doing this. And so, like, I love when people reach out to me. Oh, I also have a homeschool community. The link is in my Twitter page, or my X page. I don't get on any other social media. X is kind of my favorite echo chamber. So
Same. Same.
I don't like Facebook or Instagram or anything. I have them, but I don't ever get on them.
Yeah, me too. I'm on them begrudgingly, and I'm annoyed. I have to post to TikTok and Instagram and stuff too. But eventually, I'd like to make some money with this endeavor, so I guess I gotta. So, well, anyway, hey, thanks so much for stopping by today. I had the best time talking to you. I didn't know what to expect going in, and I was pleasantly surprised that there's another weirdo out there that is similarly
Right?
minded. And so please, next time you see me on Twitter or X, respond on my tweet and be like, hey, me too. You're not alone, because boy, it feels pretty alone.
It does. Yeah, I agree. I understand. It's
All
good
right.
to get to know you, Brent.
Yeah, 100%. Keep in touch, and
Yeah, same.
thank you for stopping by, and we'll chat later.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye bye.
Yep. Bye bye.